depending where you are. Welcome to another special edition of the I Love Black People, a Pan-African History meeting. Again, those who have joined for the first time, my name is Awodu Ngwenya. I'm hosting the meeting here in Zimbabwe at the I Love Black People offices in Harare, Rainbow Towers, HICC. It's quite busy today, so you'll be hearing some backgrounds to the National Merit Awards, which are going on at the Harare International Conference Center, where Zimbabwe musicians are given awards through the function. So apologies for that. And also we had scammers joining in, so we're not accepting those who are joining with funny names. Our apologies about that. And also today, our co-founder, Mr. Mapondera, will highlight a few topics which we've been discussing today. We know this is a Black History Month, and we wouldn't want to have only Feb as a Black History Month. Every month is Black History Month, but we're celebrating with others through the Black History Month. So today we're going to speak about Pan-African leaders. We have country speakers who are going to present. I have a brother Juan Isaac, all the way from South Sudan, brother Edwin Chamba, all the way from Tanzania, and our sister Anna Negola from Namibia. Welcome, sister. Whereby she will be introducing herself to everyone here in the community as the lead ambassador, and so we have a speech for us. We are also live on Facebook. Those who are on Facebook, you can write in the comment section where you are joining us from. We appreciate you for joining us, and also each and every one here. We do appreciate you for joining. So we're going to start with our sister Anna to give us a speech, and also appreciate each and everyone who have joined, who has spared their time to join us on today. Thank you all. We appreciate you using your data to join and have a discussion with us. We appreciate all of you. And again, thank you as we conclude the month of February. We do appreciate all the support, the love if you have shown for the Love the People community. And also check out our application, which is a Love the People app, which is available on iOS at the moment. Whilst the lead developers and all the developers for the Love Black People are working tirelessly to make sure that we also improve the Android version of the application so that it will be better and a good, faster to use. Yes, I'm trying to see Sister Anna Negola, you joined with this account. All right, I saw you. Let me unmute you so that you give a speech. You're the first person to give us a speech today. Yes, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening. It's evening. We are having this evening hours from 5 to 6. We are no more going. We are no more saying it's afternoon. So I cordially like to honor and recognize the founder, the co-founders, directors, and facilitators of Pan-African History Calls, our beloved brothers and sisters around the world, and fellows leading ambassadors. Ladies and gentlemen, I rise to extend my gratitude and sincere greetings to the mentioned above. I appreciate for your unselfish leadership and the empowerment you are sowing in our lives, which is not void for vanity, but for the betterment of our generation through empowerment and building. So our topic for today, we are going to discuss about civic empowerment education. To start with it, as we are busy emphasizing the strengthening of protection of Black people lives around the African continent and worldwide, on this slide, would like to kindly bring to the attention of the responsible African citizens to consider when identifying the safe places and ensuring our people safety is guaranteed. Statistics shows that massive numbers of crime recorded cases and some of sort of discrimination, slavery, gender-based violence activities as form of violation of human rights occurs due to the fact that citizens are not aware of their rights due to fear and dependency. To emphasize further, with civic education is entitled to empower the African nation to be well informed, activate citizens, and give them the knowledge to change the world around us. It is a vital part of democracy and equip ordinary residents with knowledge about our democracy and our constitution, as we talk about human rights and freedom. Some people don't know their rights and find themselves in harsh situations they cannot be able to escape and overworked. It is because they are depending on either for the certain job they are working, and they are because of that maybe amount of salary they are getting. So because of xenophobia, this makes them difficult for them to be able to ran away from such situation. Xenophobia is the most contributing factor to discrimination and gender-based violence among Black people. The fear of action and standing up on your feet as democratic citizen who is well aware and educated about their rights. Instead, our people are suffering in silence because of fear. What can the democratic citizen do to curb and to create social awareness and to curb social problems caused by xenophobia, gender-based violence, and discrimination among us in the mother continent, Africa, and around the world, whereby our brothers and sisters are finding themselves? So empowering the citizens to be aware of their rights and their responsibilities is gonna be a solution. Create awareness programs in school, workplaces, and in the society around us. Empowering our citizens through civic education empowerment programs. Educating one means educating the whole nation by teaching people on their rights and hence social awareness, empowerment, self-awareness, and responsibilities in the individual lives. Through this, the voice of the voiceless are raised and their voice are made loud and visible. In such a way, we'll be safe. Endangered places will be free from violence. Overworked people will know their rights and their responsibilities, and the people around the world will travel freely without the fear of being discriminated. They will be set free from the bondage of xenophobia. Nothing of greatness can ever be achieved by a nation without collaboration, are joining hands together in solidarity and unity. Therefore, fellow Africans, this is the time to create awareness projects in our surrounding, empowering our generation for the betterment of our society, safety, our rights to inspire the next generation. And the aim, in conclusion, is to make Africa the safe place to call home. I thank you. I am because we are.
I am because we are. Thank you so much. That was Sister Anna Negola Odboy from Namibia. Thank you again for joining us and also presenting to us. She's one of the lead ambassadors there in Namibia. Thank you again. Also today, we're praying for our brothers and sisters in Nigeria. They have in their presidential elections today, so we don't have our community members from Nigeria casting their votes there in Nigeria. We pray for peace, pray for love. Our main goal is to spread the love and also to make sure that we are protected from xenophobia and racism globally. You should check out our website at loveblackpeople.com for those who haven't visited our website yet. And also, I'd like to welcome all the lead ambassadors who are on board with us. We appreciate you and the work we are doing, and also new members. We appreciate you. I can see Betha Kaluba is asking if the meeting is ending. No, the meeting has just started. And also after the speakers, we're going to have Nana Akua, who is leading us with the healthcare lecture. And after Nana Akua, we're going to have the Pan-African and Organizing History class led by Dr. Taryn Wright. She teaches at the City of New York University in New York in the United States. She's the lead professor in this Pan-African and Organizing History class. For those who would like to add more after our speakers, you are kindly free to raise up your hand as you speak about the Pan-African leaders and their achievements. Without wasting time, I'm having our brother Isaac to speak at the moment. Yes, brother Isaac, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, moderator. I give thanks to the founder of this Black movement. Here is one Isaac from South Sudan, having a brief presentation on our leader, Nelson Mandela. The biography: Mandela was born in town of Zevo in Umtata, then part of South Africa's Cape Province, on July 18th, 1918, he was given the forename Rorilala, which means in just later land Madiba, patrilineal grandfather, great grandfather was the ruler of the Tembu Kingdom in South Africa's modern Eastern Cape Province, Kayan territories. Nelson's grandfather, Nelson Mandela, was one of Gumbachuka's sons and the source of his name. Mandela's cadet branch of royal family was morganatic, ineligible to inherit throne, but recognized as hereditary royal councillors. Because he was the king's child by a wife of Iziba clan, as a so-called left-hand house. About his career, Mandela began his studies for a Bachelor of Arts degree at University College of Fort Hare. In 1943, he completed his BA at University of South Africa and returned to Fort Hare to receive his diploma. He earned his LLB from the University of South Africa in 1989. During the last month of his incarceration, he received his diploma in his absence at a ceremony in Cape Town. Mandela joined the African National Congress in 1944 after helping to form the ANC Youth League. After becoming increasingly politically committed since 1942, Mandela climbed through the ranks of ANC Youth League, and the ANC adopted a more radical mass-based program. The program of action in 1949 as a result of the activities. As a result of that activities, in 1952, he was appointed as the Defiance Campaign's National Volunteer-in-Chief with Malvi Kachalia as his deputy. Mandela was able to practice law after completing 2-year law diploma on top of his BA. In August 1952, he and Oliver Tambo founded Mandela and Tambo, South Africa's first black-owned law business in the 1950s. For the first time, he was banned towards the end of 1952 when the Freedom Charter was adopted in Kliptown in June 26, 1955. He was only allowed to watch in secret as a restricted person. That was about his career. And when we come to his legacy about the presidency, despite the fact that he spent 27 years in prison, that did not prevent him from making sure that his vision for his nation became a reality. He became South Africa's first democratically elected president on May 10, 1994, after one term as president. Mandela kept his pledge and stood down in 1999. He worked with the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund he established in 1995, and the Nelson Mandela Foundation and the Mandela Rhodes Foundation. When we come to his family, Mandela was self-conscious and he was heterosexual. Mandela was married 3 times, had 6 children, and had at least 17 grandkids and great-grandchildren. He was stern and demanding to his children, but he was more affectionate with his grandchildren. Winnie Madikizela Mandela, a social worker, was Mandela's second wife, whom he married in June 1958. In March of 1996, they divorced. In July 1998, on his 80th birthday, Mandela married his 3rd wife, Grace Michael. When it comes to his death, he died on December 5th, 2013, at the age of 95, after a long-term lung ailment. He died at his home in Houghton, Johannesburg at around 20 at 50 minutes local time, accompanied by his family at 23:45. Then President Jacob Zuma announced his death on national television. A 10-day national mourning period was observed in South Africa. When we come to his legacy within South Africa, Mandela was universally regarded as both the father of the nation and the founding father of democracy by the time of his death. He was a global star outside of South Africa, with Rita Barnard, a South African studies professor, characterizing him as one of the most admired individuals of our time. Thank you very much. This is about Nelson Mandela. Mbutu, I am because we are. So this brief history about Nelson Mandela. I know we are having more about Nelson Mandela, but this is what I can give you. Thank you. I am because we are.
I am because we are Ubuntu. We appreciate you, Brother Isaac, all the way from South Sudan, giving us a brief background of Nelson Mandela and how his life was, and also his contribution in the South African independence. We do appreciate you, brother. On next, we're going to hear our brother Edwin Chamba. If you have something to say, then after Brother Edwin Chamba, our co-founder, Mr. Mapondera, is here with us in Zimbabwe, and you'll be in the United States, America soon. You will also joining us. So, Brother Edwin Chamba, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How you doing?
I'm doing great, brother. How is Tanzania?
Tanzania is fine. How is Zimbabwe?
Zimbabwe is doing great, and today we will just joined us. We have our brothers in Nigeria who are doing their presidential elections. Pray for them for peace, love, and everything. Thank you. So you can go ahead, brother.
Thank you. Greetings. Yes, as I said, my name is Edwin Chamba. I'm from Tanzania. I'm the lead ambassador of ambassadors and members in Tanzania. I joined I Love Black People since 2019 up to this moment. So I have some experiences from when I joined I Love Black People, the things and the experiences that I get in I Love Black People, and the activities that have been included in I Love Black People. I've been doing different activities, including a moderator for some groups when I Love Black People started. And today I thank everyone for the support. I thank everyone for the support, for the way they are working with this I Love Black People movement. We are doing good. We are going well, and we need people to focus and consider purposely this movement as a good movement that can emancipate Africans from racism and xenophobia, because it is a movement which has been created by our co-founders, Sinclair Skinner and Christopher Mapondera, in a technological way that people may help other Africans or other Black people everywhere in the world by using technology. It's a technological movement. So we need some support. We do need some people. We do need some people to be invited and as much as possible. Friends, family should be invited to join this movement, because the movement is crucial for all Africans. So it's better we take our families to join us in this movement, so that we can be strong and stronger as we go and see how the way we can make it good and fine. Also, I've been gaining some knowledges, like traditional medicine knowledge, traditional food, healthcare management from our mother Nana Akua. We thank for that. We know that one is crucial for all Africans, because our health is important first. when you have your health, a good health, you can do anything you want to do, because if you don't have a good health, nothing can be done. So we thank our mother Nana Akua for the lecture that she used to give us on Saturday calls. And also we should thank our mother, Dr. Tyrene, who is providing us with food to the brain. I call it food to our brain in Pan-Africanism experiences. I've been gaining some more experiences through these lectures since when I joined the Allied Black People. So I need people to download our app. We have our app, our application, trying to recommend Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses that are helpful, because when we recommend those Black businesses and Black-friendly, we make an easy way for our management, co-founders and the management to create a green book, which is a book for all Africans, to help all Africans to have the safe safaris when they are moving everywhere in the world, because the Green Book have been identifying safe places for Black people, safe places for Africans everywhere in the world. So it's good to join this movement. We have to encourage other people to join us, because the movement is good and the movement is using some technological ways. It is not a hard movement, but it is easier to do this movement because we are using only technology, using only internet, using only some new advanced technological ways to present our movement, so that we can help our people or other people in the world against racism and xenophobia. I thank everyone, and I need everyone to be focused in this movement, because it's a good movement. Be focused, find people to join you, so that we can be strong and stronger, so that we move on to face our goals that we have been created since this movement happening, or since we have started this movement. I thank everyone for this evening. Thank my friend, Mr. Wedding Wenya, and all who are in this movement. I am because we are. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much, our brother Edwin Chamba, for a wonderful speech. Up next, we're going to have our co-founder, Mr. Christophe Matpondera. Yes, welcome, sir.
Well, thank you. Welcome. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. When Howard told me about today's topic, I decided to just drop everything else that I had on my calendar. And I thought this is a very important subject for us to talk about. When you start analyzing our leadership, from Marcus Garvey, Du Bois, to Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, Nelson Mandela, Gaddafi, you can see that they represented different profiles and also different stages of our development in African, from a political point of view, from an economic point of view, and from all the other aspects of our lives. Marcus Garvey and Du Bois and their colleagues at the time, when they started the whole Pan-African movement, it was really trying to assert themselves as an African people. You find that there was more African consciousness amongst the diaspora than it was in Africa itself. But because of that interaction, you find out this is what led to the first Pan-African Congress, because that brought together the diaspora and those that were on the African continent. Then as time went on, we got into the situation where political independence was the most important thing. And this is where people like Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, Robert Mugabe, Jomo Kenyatta, and many others, leaders that we had, in the early 50s, late 50s, early 60s. The whole emphasis on political independence. Then after that, you get to the point where most of Africa supposedly was free, except for Southern Africa. Now, the difference being that in Southern Africa, you had settlers who had come in and took land, and they came to settle in that part of the continent. So their whole mentality was totally different. There are people who were saying, I've come to take your house, I now own it, and I'm going to tell you how you can relate to it, and I'm going to determine how that house is going to be run. So that's really what they were doing with our countries, and in South Africa, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Angola, and so forth. So it was not easy for them to give up. And we were forced to have to go to war. We staged armed struggle, and we defeated them. So that was a whole different regime of our African development. So people like Nelson Mandela, Robert Mugabe, Samora Machel, Agostinho Neto, Sam Nujoma, Jomo Kenyatta, these were the leaders that realized that there's no way in which they are going to get political or economic power without having to fight for it. So that puts them in a whole different category than, let's say, Seretse Khama of Botswana, where they became a British protectorate, where independence was granted to them, and they had to approach their freedom in a whole different manner altogether. Now, what I wanted to touch on today was that one common thread with all the African leaders that we had, regardless of whether it is coming from Marcus Garvey, coming down to Machel or Mugabe and so forth, and Nelson Mandela, was that we did not have, or they did not have, the time to understand the systems they were going to assume or inherit or take over. Okay? They took over systems that had been created for white people, by white people, and for the benefits of white people. Those systems had nothing to do with Black people. I was reading somebody saying it's a very funny situation that when the colonizers came to Africa, they had the Bible translated into all our languages, but they never translated engineering books, scientific books, or anything of that sort that would have made us change our whole lifestyles. But they emphasized more on religion, which was supposed to make us pacified and less hostile to their invasion of our continent. So because of not having the time to understand the systems that we were inheriting, and also having the time to create our own systems that were going to be relevant to us, you find that that process was disturbed in different ways. You can realize that some time back, there were coups in Africa, one coup after the other, whether it was in Nigeria, in Ghana, for the former British colonies, and then the French colonies. I mean, they still had coups, which are still taking place even up to now. Okay, simply because when we start talking about changing systems that are relevant to us, it becomes a threat to the former colonizers. People like Thomas Sankara, who are saying we don't need to follow the French system. We're going to have our own. We don't need to define our economic systems in the way the French define it for us. But what happened to them, to him? They killed him. Gaddafi was also the same frame of mind, where say Africa must be able to rule itself, control its natural resources. Let's get rid of any of these currencies and create our own African currency, which is backed by the gold that we have on the continent. And what happened to him? Again, it's all history. So the challenges that our leaders faced was that when they started to try and create economic systems, social systems that were relevant to us as an African people, that became a threat to the former colonizers. And they killed them, they eliminated them. So our challenge today is the young African people is to take off from where our previous leadership left. We have to now start creating the institutions for us, by us, that are relevant to us. Okay, we now have different, several tools that we can do in terms of technology. There's a lot, in terms of communications. Now you don't need, the copper wires to move from one village to the other or from one city to the other. It's all done, through the airwaves and so forth. Okay, these are things that our previous leadership could not even think about. Some of them did not exist. These technologies did not exist. So today we have the challenge of creating the economic systems that are really relevant to us. We cannot, for instance, you've got the IMF or the World Bank will talk of, well, there's 99% unemployment in country X in Africa. Or there's the weak health systems. A few years ago when COVID started, there was fear that Africa was going to lose millions and millions of people because of the weak health system. But lo and behold, Africa did far better than all these developed countries because we created the herd immunity, and some of the herbs and the medicines, traditional medicines that we were taking gave us more resistance against these man-made diseases like, COVID and stuff. So we have to do the same thing in terms of our economic systems, social systems that are relevant to us. Our previous leaders did not have the chance to do so, so we have to do it ourselves. We are preparing ourselves to compete, whether they're the Chinese or the Europeans or the Americans. We all read the same textbooks. 1 + 1 is 2. It doesn't matter whether you're doing it in Russia, you're doing it in China, in Australia, and so forth. Science is basically the same. So we have to start looking at how we harness these resources. And finally, the management of our resources. When some of our leaders came into being, the resources that were exposed or realized to them were very much limited. For West Africa, it was mostly oil. For Southern Africa, it was mostly minerals. But even the minerals at that time, there was more emphasis on gold and copper. Then afterwards, you started going into, iron and steel and stuff like that. But right now, we've got so many minerals, and it is up to us to start looking at those minerals and see how they can be able to be of help and make a difference in our lifestyles. We've had lithium in Africa all along, and it only took maybe Elon Musk to start off with electric vehicles. And all of a sudden, lithium has become such a major element that everybody is clamoring for. But we as Africans, we should have been in a position, or we should be in a position where we determine how those resources are going to be utilized. And I'm glad that some African leaders are now insisting that we cannot exploit raw materials, but you must value add them into some finished products and so forth. And I think that is a very important step that they are taking. So this is really what I have to share with you today, that we have to look at Africa's development in terms of the situation that we are faced with. We still have the same challenges of divide and rule. That is so much, the emphasis is put on the tribalism or tribal differences, so to say. So you end up at times having, these xenophobic situations where we start trying to differentiate one from, from each other. But I'm glad that, again, our current leadership is realizing that there's one common thread amongst us. We are all African people, and everything that we do to be in a position to take care of each other. Thank you so much. If there's any question and comments, I'm open for that. Otherwise, I would like to, again, thank you for attending today's seminar. Again, don't forget to patronize our apps. If we can't do it ourselves, nobody will. But if we do it and demonstrate how these apps are useful and necessary for us, then to attract other people to use them as well. Thank you, Yvonne.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mapondera, for a wonderful speech. I think we learned a lot through that. I can see that there are only 2 comments from Zoe Ousu. He's saying that they hide around the region and also in robbers because we are religious, united, and they can distract us until they break that religion. That was his comment.
Yes, I agree with what you said.
Yes, I think that's all. And thank you very much. Have a wonderful weekend.
Okay, same to you. Thank you. You're a good. Thank you. You're a good.
Okay, thank you. Yes, up next we are going to yes, Nana Akua is greeting. Yeah, Akua. And if you would like to receive a shout out from her, you can turn on your camera. Yes, Nana Akua, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Turn up. I think you can hear me. Hello, everyone. Greetings, greetings. I think Moses has his camera on. Hey, Yvonne, how are you? And I think there's a delay. I don't know if we're lagging from where I am or if it's where you are, but I hope that you can hear me okay. Yeah, I'm not hearing you at all. Let me.
Yes,
I hope you can hear.
Yes, I can.
Okay, okay, you can hear me. Okay. All right. So greetings, everyone. Yvonne, please remind me, this is week 6, 7.
Yeah, I think it's week 7. I need to double check.
Okay. So yes, good day, everyone. Yes, confirm that for me. Let me make sure I have the right slide that I plan to show today. And so thank you all for joining us. I think it's already been said, and I think even posted in the chat, I got a quick look to continue to promote and spread the word about our efforts, right? It's not just for the sake of selling books, it's really giving good information that our people need. So the Global Green Book is available on Amazon. If you know of other stores, schools, universities that may be able to place the books in their stores. We would love that information and any insights or any connections that you may have for that. Knowledge is power, but we have to get the we have to spread the power, and we have to therefore make things accessible and get them into the hands of our people. So, and of course, if you've not downloaded the Safe Places app, please do so. And again, spread the word about that. We are having our first meetup for our US members on March 5th. We'd love for you to become an ambassador and help push and elevate our efforts here in the States, so that we can increase our businesses in the Global Green Book and on the website and on the Safe Places app. So just know that if you have any one that wants to be more involved, that respects and appreciates what we're doing here, please spread the word and encourage them to join us in that virtual meetup on March 5th. And it's 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you need the link, message me or email me. We'll be sure to get that out to you. And so I think today we are on stress relief, I believe. And so I want to pull up the lessons, but I was just trying to confirm where we were. I believe it is, this may be 6. And if you'll let me share the screen. Okay. Ali Nafe, I may be pronouncing your name wrong. I see Brother Haki is on the move. I see you. Thank you all for showing your beautiful Black faces. Let me try to. So, oh, that's not what I was trying to share. And if you can tell me, Yvonne, are you seeing the 38 Dr. Bach flower essences on the screen?
Yes, yes, I can see that.
Okay, great. And is this about week 6, maybe?
Yes, yes, it's week 6.
Okay. All right. So this is probably not the best handout to start out with. I have I gotta rename these because apparently I am not naming them correctly. That's not right either, I don't think. Let's see. Okay, yeah, we're gonna go with this. Okay, so we know that in life it can Yvonne, I'm getting something saying somebody's requesting to, you're not requesting remote control on our screen, are you?
No, I'm not.
All right, so do you see effective methods of handling stress on your screen?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so let's talk about stress. And I always, maybe more so than the other weeks, I always feel like all of them are important, but I feel like managing stress is sometimes underrated and maybe a bit unrecognized. And I can't express the importance of really keeping track of of your emotional well-being, right? And I know that it's important to handle some of the more immediate issues And, you know, sometimes our physical health takes a front seat, and working and paying the bills and taking care of children and family members or our spouses kind of gets put in the forefront. And I know that we don't always take care of ourselves, right? So it becomes an issue where we build up stress, and it has not only a mental or psychological or emotional impact, it has a physical impact on our bodies. And so let's talk about how we can handle stress. And we know that in order to first handle it, we have to be able to recognize it. Yvonne, is a Ward on his screen? Because I keep getting a message saying he's requesting remote control on my screen, but I know that he wouldn't keep doing that. So someone keeps trying to control my screen. Is there anything we can do about that?
Yes, he's no longer.
Now, but so whoever is on is going through all of the things. Now it's Zoom Communications is requesting remote control of the screen. So somebody is playing around today.
Okay, let me look through it.
It's like they're just going through all of the names or different names and trying to control the screen. So anyway, it stopped momentarily. So basically, let's talk about what stress is. So we know in order to handle it, we have to know how to identify it. And it's not always easy to recognize when we're in a stressful situation, or when we are emotionally drained, or when we're having tension or strain, and that it's affecting us. Zoom Communications Limited is what they're using now. And so a definition of stress: it's a state of physical or mental tension or something inducing it. Could also be pressure or strain that tends to distort a body. So it could be, you could put stress on any given thing, but of course we're talking about our physical, emotional, mental selves. But anything that is giving sort of a push or pull, or causing some kind of tension or strain on you, this we know is considered to be stress. And not all of the symptoms are obvious. Some of them would mirror other conditions, but know that this could be stress. So again, or it could be other things. So not everything that you'll see on this list will be all stress, but you should consider it, especially if you don't find it easy to recognize when you're in a stressful situation. But it could be depression. It could be difficulty falling asleep. It could be extreme tiredness or fatigue. It could be feeling anger or resentment. It could be frequent absences from work or from other obligations. It could be the inability to concentrate. It could be impatience. It could be loss of pleasure in life. Things that normally or used to make you happy no longer satisfy you. It could be an increase or a decrease in appetite. It's not always that people stop eating when they are stressed. They may consume more when they're stressed. It could be muscle aches for no apparent reason. Now, of course, if you've worked out or ran or walked an excessive amount and you're sore, that is explainable. But when you just feel tired and achy for no reason, and you've not done anything physically exertive, it could be stress. It could be stomach or intestinal disturbances. Again, of course, we know it could be, something that you ate that didn't agree with you, or some kind of indigestion based on food poisoning or poor food combining, or what have you. But it could also be stress if you, for no apparent reason, are having stomach or intestinal problems. It could also be sweaty palms, or sweating in other parts of the body. Again, maybe outside of being hot or overheated, but just kind of sweating and feeling anxious and having sort of a lot of perspiration for no apparent reason. That could be stress. It could be tension headaches. And of course, we know there are a myriad of reasons that one would get headaches, right? But we know that stress can definitely also give that tension and that pressure and that strain on the head. And then performance anxiety. It may be a situation where you maybe normally get a little nervous, but not extremely, anxious about speaking in public or talking around others or presenting information. Stress could cause some major performance anxiety. So look for all of these symptoms, and it may really, really be something that you would attribute to something else, but it could in fact be stress. And we know that stress can in fact make any number of health conditions, physical health conditions, worse. It can even create them to be triggered or to have an onset or outbreak of a physical illness just by stress alone. That goes for cardiovascular issues, that goes for hypertension, that goes for digestive issues. Any number of health conditions can be worsened by stress or brought on by stress. So some ways of handling stress. We know that we can exercise, we can do different physical activities, whether it's aerobics, step, yoga, it could be jogging, it could be working out at the health club on a treadmill or an elliptical, any kind of fitness classes. We know that we can learn how to, and again, we have to identify the stress and know what the source is, right? But if it is how we interact with people, or is stress at work or with a supervisor or such, you may have to learn how to deal with negative people. You might read up on conflict resolution. You may look up how to deal with communicating effectively or communicating with negative people, learning different tools or tactics of how to manage these type of people, how to protect yourself and your mental health is going to be key, because we know that we can't change people. We can only change our responses to people. You may join a community, social, or recreational organization. You may decide to volunteer your time, help others, be of service to others. These are great stress relievers as well. You may learn different ways of expressing yourself. You may, I think for some people and with technology and social media these days, you have everybody that's doing lives or TikToks or podcasts or what have you. Sometimes that's a person's, sometimes people just, of course, feel they have something to say. And sometimes what they have to say is a way of handling their stress or talking through difficult situations or being able to express whatever feelings or thoughts they're having. This is one way of expressing, yourself. For people who are more introverted, for example, and don't want to talk or be in the public eye, you may draw, you may write things down, you may build things. But whatever way best allows you to express or release your thoughts and your feelings, find a way in which to do that. Some people will choose to reassess their lifestyle. It might be your schedule, your routine, certain activities you involve yourself in. Reevaluate those things. See if those things still serve you. See if they work well for you. See if it's bringing more pleasure than pain. You may need to devise a different life plan or strategy in how you do things. It can be as simple as what time you get up in the morning, whether you do your workout in the morning or in the evening, whether it's you eat a heavier meal in the morning or in the middle of the day. It could be, I don't do chores or run errands during the week while I have work or school, and I wait until the weekend, or whatever it may be. We sometimes simply have to reassess our plan, our routine, our schedule. You may also choose to practice or tap into your spiritual beliefs, your innermost power. You may pray more, meditate more, attend religious events or services more frequently. Consult with a spiritual leader, your priest, your minister, your pastor, the first lady or one of the deaconess or whoever. But instead of looking for activities or things to do, sometimes it's helpful for people to have good, meaningful conversation and dialogue, or even if it's vent sessions with people who will be of use, that can kind of give maybe spiritual foundation, or a type of support that maybe you are lacking, or perspective, because perspective is everything. Sometimes we just have to have a different way of looking at things. And in this regard, let me also throw in here, this is a great opportunity to talk about mental health. Sometimes we need to speak to a professional, someone that is trained to help us process our feelings, to help us figure out our thoughts, and how to change or alter the way we think, our perspective, give us a new plan or routine to participate in. You know, give us the support that might be needed for whatever imbalance we may have, any biological imbalance we have in terms of how we think and feel. And then we also just have to sometimes create a self-care plan, a nurturing self-love routine. Focus on treating yourself well. Focus on pampering yourself, doing what makes you happy, what makes you feel good. Not just what you have to do, not just working, not just studying, not just taking care of others, not just being in service, but something that you enjoy. That may be getting a massage, that may be going for a walk, that may be doing a facial for yourself, soaking in the bath with some essential oils and some rose petals or some bath salts. It may be getting your nails done or your hair done. All of these we may use as maintenance, but these can also be really good self-care and pampering things that we can add that help us relieve stress. Below here are also some relaxation exercises. These are just some simple things you can do, as simple as wrinkling up your forehead and then relaxing it. It could be tightening up your shoulders and then allowing them to, you know, fall and, you know, relieve some of the tension in your shoulders. There are definitely certain parts of the body that will usually hold tension in. Shoulders is a big one. The back is another, neck. But then, of course, if you have a physically laboring job, it could be any and all parts of your body. It could be your feet, you know, so there's some where you might relax and then, tense up and then relax your calves or your feet or your ankles. But doing sort of physical relaxation exercises can also relieve stress, especially if you hold it in your body. Not all stress is just how you feel emotionally or mentally. We do hold a lot of stress in our bodies. So a lot of times the aches and pains, the fatigue, the different things like that are strictly because of stress. And we may be mentally strong, so to speak, while our bodies are really taking the beating, right? So we have to just really always do a lot of self-evaluation and self-reassessment to see how we're really doing, how we're really handling life. One of the best things I started doing, I think, is just expressing, mainly to my children, right? When I was feeling stressed or when I was upset, or, you know, this is stressing me out, or this is too much, or I'm trying to do this now, let me do this later. Like, I think talking through these types of things are very empowering, right? It's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of I can't get this done or I can't make this happen. This is empowering because you're able to evaluate and you're able to speak for yourself and articulate, well, this is what's happening with me. This is how I feel. This is what's going on. And this will impact what I can do for you because I have to take care of myself. And it's okay to do that. It is very healing to be able to do that and very empowering. This handout here, I like this handout. I will not go through some of these, but I find this interesting. So I pulled it out from having collected it years ago because it gives you some ideas of how to relieve stress, things that you wouldn't necessarily think of, things that you wouldn't think were helpful. But if you start creating a routine or a habit around some of these, I think you will get some relief. So if you do not have the, and as a matter of fact, I don't think I posted it, so I don't think anyone has it. So I will post it in the group, but also if Yvonne, or I don't know who else is on the line. I don't know if Award is on the line or not, but if you can post my email in the chat, I will get you the packet so that you can use some of these 101 stress relievers as well. This handout I put in just to show that there is a physiological link to stress. We have different glands in the body, the pituitary and the adrenal glands, that are in charge of handling stress. They send messages to the, or through hormones throughout the body to help the body release certain chemicals or hormones in the body that help us to manage stress. And when we overwork the body, and when we don't address or relieve our stressors, or we hold on to grief, or we hold on to anxiety, we really put strain on these glands, and they're not able to send out the right messages or hormones to the body so that the body can handle. So it's important to, again, recognize stress. We know that, as I've already stated, constant stress may cause illness. I mentioned that earlier. A lot of times people who have a high paced lifestyle don't get enough rest. They don't sleep well, or they don't sleep enough. I cannot stress the importance of rest. And if you have to do relaxing baths, if you have to drink sedative or nervine teas to help relax or calm the body, please do. Don't underestimate the importance of sleep. It's very important. Lack of energy and fatigue is a really big issue for people. Sometimes it is because you're stressed. Sometimes it is because the adrenal glands are overworked. It is sometimes because you didn't get enough sleep. And of course, insomnia is a very real thing. There are some people who have a lot of trouble sleeping. Probably second to pain pills, sleeping pills is probably a very popular, widely used prescription for people that may not have serious illnesses per se, but have to have assistance with managing. And so there are many sedative or nervine herbs that can help with these things. There's a handout that we'll get to that. But just remember to address these issues so that they don't cause other conditions that interfere with your daily lives. Exercise, certain remedies, flower remedies we'll talk about next week, but we know that homeopathic remedies, herbal remedies, flower remedies, there are several categories of natural healing plants that we know can help the body manage stress, anxiety, grief, fatigue, low energy, all of these types of things. Wanted to get to, okay, so maybe this handout has all of the breathing exercises. I wanted to talk about the herbs that may not be in this packet. Okay, forgive me. So let's just go back to here. So here they mentioned some of the medicinal teas or herbs that can be made into teas that are good for anxiety and stress. So any of these used separately or together can be helpful. Valerian, passion flower, lemon balm, orange blossoms, anise seed, peppermint leaves. There are many others, lemon balm, hops, skullcap, kava kava. There are several herbs that are excellent for helping to calm you down, helping you sleep, helping you to relieve tension and anxiety that may be in your mind and your body. There are also different homeopathic remedies that can be used. I think last week we talked more about herbs. I don't know if we really got a lot in about homeopathics, but we know that there are different homeopathic remedies that will address a number of symptoms. These in particular listed here focus on handling the symptoms of stress and anxiety. Kali, carb, arginite, and Acon. I'm giving you the abbreviations because when you see them, this will be abbreviated as ACON. This one will be abbreviated as ARG and then NIT. This one will be abbreviated as KALI and then just the CARB. But we know that all of these can help with different feelings that will affect how comfortable you're feeling and how relaxed you're feeling. The flower remedies, aspen, cherry plum, mimulus, rock rose, even Star of Bethlehem. Gorse is great for grief. So there are several flowers that you can use to heal the body that will help you. I always encourage people to not suffer in silence, to not just say, I can withstand, the pain, or this is just how life is, or this is just how it is. Even all of that kind of talk is a sign of stress or a sign of depression or some other, feelings. Really take note of those things and address those things rather than feeling like, oh no, I can handle it, or it's okay, or it's not that bad. Anything that you notice, you should really take the time to evaluate it. I'll share this quick story, and I shared a story, I think last week or week before, about the importance of knowing the signs of stroke and heart attack and things of that nature. Well, I just got word that a former client of mine is now in hospice because she has lung cancer that has spread to the brain, and they never even knew that she had any cancer at all, right? And so they suspect, and from that, from the lesions on the brain, she had a stroke. But they suspect that she had been having headaches and just was probably treating them herself, maybe just thinking life was stressful, she's just having a headache, and taking whatever over the counter. If there is something that you are struggling with and it continuously is occurring, and again, with no apparent reason, or even if you think you know the reason, if it's something that you're having to deal with every day, usually if it's an issue that you are having chronically, I'll say 3 times a week, you should really, really take care to get that checked out. Because usually, especially in a diagnosed condition, usually things can be addressed and controlled to where you're not having to constantly go out of your way to handle them by taking some kind of pain reliever or sleep aid, or even if we were talking about, say, the colon and you're irregular, you shouldn't have to take a laxative every day or every other day. There's some underlying issue that is causing those problems. And so we really should get those things checked out. Okay. So I know I went over, Dr. Wright. They went over too. They've been going over. And so forgive me, I took a few extra minutes to get that out. But we'll talk next week about the flower remedies and other stress relievers. And as always, thank you for joining, and I bid you good health and peace.
Thank you so much, Nana Akua, for a wonderful lecture. We do appreciate you. And also thank you everyone who joined us through the lecture until it ends. And now we're going to switch over to Dr. Taryn Wright for the Pan-African History and Organizing Seminar. Welcome, Dr. Taryn Wright.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Okay, so welcome to the Pan-African History and Organizing course, the ideological training course. So I posted a film, Cuba and African Odyssey, which, when I use a film, it's like for the purpose of supplementing the text. So in other words, or actually replacing a text. So the film is the text, so to speak, in the sense that watching the film would give you the content that I could have given you in terms of reading. But I know that people actually like film, video, that essentially chronicles what they need to know. And so I hope people watch the film, Cuba and African Odyssey. And I want to stress in the beginning that I don't want to this is not to center the conversation about African people on Cuba, but to center the conversation on the events that happen in Africa that are part and parcel an expression of how Pan-Africanism is starting to manifest on the African continent, whether it is within particular nations or with the desire, the ultimate desire to have continental unity. So the film, and I'm going to play just a couple of minutes of it. So Award, you already know, I guess there's copyright, issues there when I begin to play just a part of the film. But the film begins with a very important historical case, which is Patrice Lumumba and the story of the Congo. And it's important because it's so relevant to the time, but it's also relevant to our time in the sense that there's a lot of conversation about, the Eastern Bloc and the Eastern Europeans. And right now, right, because of Russia and the war between Russia and Ukraine, and who's aligned with African people, should we be in support of this because of world support for Ukraine and the Russia's role, or the Eastern Bloc's role in its relationship with Africa, yes, and the fact that they never colonized people, or but they colonized in their region, but they never colonized Africa and didn't have African territories or territories in Africa as a result of the scramble for Africa. So I think we're still dealing with some of these issues, but the case of Patrice Lumumba and the Congo is one of the struggle for, national Congolese unity, which is, yes, an expression of Pan-Africanism, because we know that the Congo in particular holds some of the most important resources in the world. The Congo and the 9 surrounding countries hold the bulk of the world's most important resources, right? So whoever controls the Congo and the 9 surrounding countries controls a bulk of the world's most important resources. And unfortunately, that has been a credit to Europe and Europeans, because to this date, we have not managed to harness the resources in a way where they can be useful and to the benefit of African people in an economic sense. And meaning that the industries that are there, it's African resources, it should belong to the people, but they are foreign nationals of the European persuasion who are mining those resources and benefit economically from those resources. So the people are resource rich, but then economically poor and disparaged and on the margins of the economic systems, right? So when the Congo gains its independence as a result, and this is a controversial point, as a result of the people's struggle within the nation from Belgium, it is Patrice Lumumba who asserts that, wants to recall that as the young prime minister of the Congo. And the Belgians are not interested in him, highlighting that issue. So there is a famous incident where he gives a speech. It's called the December 12th speech. And he recalls to the Congolese people their struggle that have brought them to this day of independence. And for that speech, he will be targeted and essentially assassinated because he intends to unify the Congo and make it a place, a country, a nation that serves the interest of Congolese people more than it serves the interest of the Western world. And namely, what is so important about that part of the world, aside from the people, are these resources, cobalt and coltan, that are coveted by the West, particularly the United States, and they are unwilling to have an African person in control of resources that allow them to advance their military and to advance military technology. So that is the setting for which Patrice Lumumba's assassination takes place. So I'm going to give you just a blip of that. But why the film is called Cuba: An African Odyssey is because it chronicles a number of independence struggles in Africa, the Congo, Angola, Guinea-Bissau, I believe even Mozambique, where African liberation struggles are assisted by Cuba specifically, okay? And yes, Cuba is probably one of the most progressive nations in terms of its support of Africa. And at one time, they were the leader of the non-aligned nations, right? So all the nations that are not in the G8 or the European, nations and European, informally, the European Union, so to speak. So this is a story essentially of how these African liberation struggles are part of their time between 1962 and 1963, or during 1962 to 1963. We would have 17 African nations take their independence from European imperialist forces on the ground in Africa. If it were any other continent that had such a spring in independence, we would never stop talking about it. But because it is African nations fighting off the cloak of colonialism, which was now going to mean that European nations would have to reposition themselves on an economic level. And there's more to that, but it means that they would no longer have outright colonial territories. Now, we know how the story goes, some of us. We know that right on the horizon, colonialism morphs into neo-colonialism, which is what most of us are struggling against right now, where the visible leadership looks like us, but it's still exploitative and not to the benefit or to the interest or meets the interest of African people, right? So it's something we're still struggling with. But at this moment in time, what is happening in this setting, 1960 to 1963, are a number of struggles that, one, is jumped off by none other than Osagyefo, Kwame Nkrumah, who asserts that the independence of Ghana cannot just be about the independence of Ghana, but the independence has to be a relationship to other African nations, throwing off the cloak of colonialism and ultimately reaching for, or at least working towards, continental unity. And not necessarily a United States of Africa, but a united Africa that's to the benefit of African people, okay? So let me just give you a blip. I'm gonna go off of the camera and switch to just the beginning of the documentary Cuba: An African Odyssey. And let me just say this, I use this in the academic setting as well, because I think it's such a great film or documentary that chronicles this history. And it also allows us to get into some conversations that I always have in this context, which are around ethnic struggle, ethnic strife, and how do we achieve unity when we still have differences. And that will be next week. We'll get into that. How do we seek and aspire to and manifest Pan-Africanism when we still have internal conflicts of our own, right? But take away, we're extracting what is useful to us in this context. And that is, you know, the history of Africa's liberation struggles and their relationship with Cuba that is an unusual force of assistance to those liberation struggles. So 1 second, I'm gonna keep talking, but then I'm gonna share, but I wanna make sure I'm queued up. Hold on. Let's see. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna share my screen in a second. Okay. And let me know that you hear it. Award, can you let me know if they hear it once I start
which
playing?
ultimately ended colonialism. This
Wait,
little
hold
known
on. Let me
story
take it back just a little bit. Okay. Award, let me know that you can hear it.
Yes, we can
July
hear.
1991 in
Okay.
Havana.
Oh, hi, Yvonne.
It is Nelson Mandela's
Hi.
first trip outside Africa since his release from 27 years of prison. But why would the legend of struggle against oppression decide that the first person he wants to thank for helping to end apartheid is Fidel Castro, the very man who is regarded in the West as an oppressor of his own people? Fidel Castro and 500,000 Cubans took part in the African wars, which ultimately ended colonialism. This little-known story began in 1960, only a year after Cuban revolutionaries triumphed. Their struggle had captured people's imagination, and the young feisty leaders, Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, emerged from 3 years of guerrilla war as heroes. The wave of independence in Africa was spreading like wildfire. That year alone, 17 African countries gained independence, and 30 others started their revolutionary armed struggle. African revolutionaries were looking to the Cubans as a model for their own independence. Cuba was living proof that David could beat Goliath.
La gran humanidad ha dicho basta y ha echado a andar, y su marcha de gigantes ya no se detendrá hasta conquistar la verdadera independencia. Quería referirme específicamente al doloroso caso del Congo, único en la historia del mundo moderno, que muestra cómo se puede burlar con la más absoluta impunidad, con el cinismo más insolente, el derecho de los pueblos.
Che Guevara was revolted, and his speech gave a clear signal that Cuba intended to act. The case of Patrice Lumumba in the Congo was symbolic of how African independence would be crushed by Cold War strategic interests. It was Lumumba's assassination that sparked a new era for many African revolutionaries, and with it started the epic of Cuba and Africa. The Congo, one of the largest and richest countries on the continent. The Belgian colony was demanding immediate independence. Patrice Lumumba, the young articulate clerk, led the movement that negotiated a peaceful solution to end Belgian rule. On June 30th, 1960, King Baudouin arrived in Leopoldville, the capital named after his great-uncle, to hand over power.
Le roi Baudouin était dans une voiture découverte. Il saluait la foule, etc. Un Congolais s'est précipité sur la voiture. J'ai vu les gardes du roi dégainer. Et tout le monde avait peur, se disait il va tuer le roi. Non, il a simplement sorti l'épée du roi de sa gaine. Et il s'est mis à danser avec cette épée. C'est très symbolique, ça. C'est comme s'il lui a arraché le pouvoir.
On Independence Day, all the dignitaries assembled in Parliament. King Baudouin was to announce the transfer of power to the new government. Patrice Lumumba had just been elected Prime Minister. But the euphoria of independence did not last long. That same day, Lumumba lit a fire that spread through the entire continent.
L'indépendance du Congo constitue l'aboutissement de l'œuvre conçue par le génie du roi Léopold II.
Le discours du roi Baudouin, qui nous rappelait comment la Belgique nous a sortis de l'esclavage, comment ils ont lutté pour nous sortir des maladies du sommeil et patati patata. Ça a été un choc. Nous ne nous attendions pas à ce rappel malheureux parce que nous estimions que le roi Baudouin n'avait plus de leçons à nous faire ce jour-là.
À ce moment-là, Lumumba se lève, qui n'était pas programmé comme devant parler à ce moment-là. Il se lève et il parle. Il fait un discours très militant.
Combattant de l'indépendance, aujourd'hui victorieux, je vous salue au nom du gouvernement congolais. Nous avons connu les ironies, les insultes, les coups que nous devions subir matin, midi et soir, parce que nous étions des nègres.
Rappelez-vous comment on traitait le blanc par rapport au noir. Rappelez-vous dans les écoles quelle place nous occupions. Rappelez-vous tout l'apartheid. Alors évidemment, réaction immédiate de toute la délégation belge. Bon, beaucoup d'agitation pendant que Lumumba parle.
Qui oubliera enfin les fusillades où périt tant de nos frères, ceux qui ne voulaient plus se soumettre au régime d'injustice, d'oppression et d'exploitation.
C'était mal reçu par les Belges, mais nous avons tout à fait répondu à nos aspirations.
Et au moment du dîner, on demande à Lumumba de présenter des excuses. Il ne s'en fait pas. Il présente les excuses en disant « Je pensais que je devais dire à cet homme des choses, je les ai dites, donc si ça blessé, je m'en excuse et je demande qu'on tourne la page et que nous puissions voir les choses autrement. » Mais il était trop tard. La majesté était lésée. Et la majesté lésée a décidé le soir même de se venger et tout a commencé.
Lumumba wanted to govern independently, but there were only 30 university graduates in the Congo, so it was agreed that for the next 5 years, Belgium would continue to run the important departments of the new state, including the army. The soldiers felt excluded from the newly acquired freedom. Within days, they started a mutiny, which led to the breakdown of the entire country.
The troops were roaming the streets, all armed, and it was quite a racial problem. The mutineers were there, and they had matiti, that's bushes on their helmet, which was a sign that they were prepared for action, for combat. And I can remember one yelling, "Venez, venez, sale flamand." We were all dirty Flemish. That was some an expression that meant you were really bad, and we're going to kill you. More stories circulated about killing, rape, pillage, etc. It was, if you will, the Iraq of today.
Le 10 juillet, retenez bien la date, les militaires belges ont occupé l'aéroport de Njili, ici. Ils ont organisé l'agression du Congo en disant, puisque les militaires congolais mutinés se sont attaqués aux femmes, aux enfants et aux officiers, la Belgique n'avait plus aucun autre moyen de protéger ses ressortissants que de faire venir des troupes belges. le 10 juillet. 10 jours après.
Lumumba immediately turned to the US for support. The United States had never been a colonizing power, and their democratic principles seemed to guarantee support for people fighting for independence. Fidel Castro himself had chosen the US as his first stop for support when his revolution triumphed a year earlier. But like Castro, Lumumba's attitude did not go down well with the Americans.
Let me stop there because I feel like this part of the film is like subjective, right? So ultimately, let me just skip a little forward to the extent that you ultimately get the understanding that along with the United States and Belgium, they would orchestrate, or those two entities in particular, and I would highlight the United States, as you see the CIA representative on there, would orchestrate the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, not only for the speech, but because in the context of the Cold War, while we think no one cares about our unity or our independence, the Western world overwhelmingly relies on our disunity. Okay. And why? Because we live in the world's most resource-rich and wealthy places. And for them to have the lion's share of those resources, we must remain disunified or ununified or not unified, okay, or disorganized. So that is the key issue. And so the Patrice Lumumba would have a critical point to make, whether he would align himself with the Eastern Bloc, the Soviet Union at the time, and allow them to have access to cobalt and coltan, even though one of those resources they actually, surprisingly enough, have access in their own region of the world. But now they would control what would be in the hands of the United States, because the United States does not have its own resource of cobalt or coltan, right? Which it needs for military purposes. So the United States was not going to allow the Soviets to have these coveted resources in their hands and exclusively have possession of them while they go without. And so Patrice Lumumba was sort of like in a ping pong situation, because he would have to choose. And he did start to cultivate relations with the Soviets. And and it was a threat to the United States in particular. So they began to plan and orchestrate and execute his assassination. That's ultimately how the story ends. The moral of the story here is that our unity is not without a threat to other groups of people, okay? There are a lot of interest in whether or not African people unify here, there, everywhere, because it is at the expense of African people in the world's most resource wealthiest places that Europe is economically, and Western societies like the United States are economically advantaged, okay, or at an economic advantage, right? So let me figure out another way to say that. It is at our expense that they are wealthy, that they are so-called developed, and have access to resources that are essential, right down to the technology that we're using to communicate today. So when African people say we want to unify, that also means self-determination, and that we are going to control the resources, and we are going to control the resources to the extent that African people benefit first and foremost, and most of all, not least of all, okay? And so this is why, we shouldn't assume, and I think we often do think like, well, what do people care if we're getting together, or if we're working together, or if we're organized. Yes, the world is very concerned with this because it is a strategic issue in terms of what they will have and what they will not have, okay? Meaning that our unity stands to threaten what they have control of and what they have access to, okay? If we decide to put African people first, as opposed to allow the territories and the communities where African people reside to be exploited, and our homes, you know, where we reside to be extraction sites for European and Western nations, okay?
State and his deputy and other people with whom he met there. He threatened, he asked for things, including to have a woman sent around to his.
Nope, I'm not gonna play that. You can go back and watch this. But, you know, ultimately, I would say this film is, while it's a very good film, there's some level of, how would you say, propaganda that is at least repeated. Actually, I think I'm gonna just end there. I did want to take you to the point where you do understand what the demise was, but okay. So some of you may know there is someone named Mobutu Sese Seko who would follow Patrice Lumumba and be the leadership in the Congo. And ultimately, Mobutu Sese Seko would be the one, his general, who would betray him and incite a coup d'etat and allow the US to back him and overthrow Lumumba's government and have him assassinated. This meant, and this is an important point, this meant that the Congo, that was initially primarily being exploited by Belgian colonialism, would now suffer international colonialism. So if you just imagine a bowl, and that bowl is the Congo, there was one hand in it, and that was the Belgians. Now, with the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, the Congo is still a bowl, but with many Western hands in the bowl. And so the Congo will go from Belgian colonialism to international colonialism. And the biggest hand in the bowl would be the United States, exploiting the resources of the Congo through the installation of a puppet government led by Mobutu Sese Seko, okay?
Mobutu to Army Chief of Staff. Mobutu was to coordinate with the UN troops to stop the country's descent into anarchy. Instead, he turned to Larry Devlin.
Mobutu said that the army was very unhappy with the prime minister because he was turning the army over to the Soviets. He wanted to mount a coup d'etat, but there was one condition. They had to know that they would have the support of the United States government. I had tried and failed to achieve by legal means what they wanted, the United States government wanted. So I stood up and shook his hand. Finally, it took me a while to do this, and said, I guarantee you the support of the United States government. And the coup, he said the coup will take place within a week, and it did.
UN troops were supposed to protect the independence of Congo, but they would not allow the Congolese troops, which were loyal to Lumumba, to operate. The mission of the United Nations troops was misused to topple the regime of the government of Lumumba, or at least not to protect Lumumba.
Les troupes des Nations Unies ici va encercler la résidence du Premier ministre. Sans aucun mandat, sans aucune autorisation, il y a une crise interne, les Nations Unies s'interposent et vont mettre le Premier ministre en résidence surveillée.
Lumumba's supporters organized his escape. He was sneaked out of his house, bundled up in the back of a government car.
Le bruit s'est répandu, Lumumba était parti de chez lui, on a commencé à le chercher. Mobutu a demandé aux Nations Unies de lui donner des hélicoptères, on l'a poursuivi, on l'a arrêté, on les a mis dans un hélicoptère, on l'a ramené ici, ligoté, comme un vulgaire bandit.
On Mobutu's orders, Patrice Lumumba was sent to his death. It was barely 6 months since Congo celebrated independence.
C'était terrible. Vous enlevez celui qui est le flambeau, l'icône, tout d'un coup, comme ça, et d'une façon très barbare, en utilisant les mains africaines. Alors c'était frustrant, c'était écœurant, c'était un appel à l'insurrection populaire. Il faut venger cela. Ce pays est à nous et je vais me battre pour lui. C'était l'étincelle qui m'a fait conduire sur le chemin du maquis, de la guérilla.
A witch hunt tracking down Lumumba's followers started in the capital. One by one, the Lumumbas fled to the safe haven across the river in Brazzaville. They organized themselves into an armed rebellion led by the 23-year-old Laurent Kabila.
So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it there. And you can, if you have not already, you can go and watch the rest of the film. Hopefully you have, and you're ready for the new readings that will be coming on Monday. That will get into the specifics of various proponents of Pan-Africanism on the African continent. And if you look at the syllabus, you know, this is seen as some of the highest expressions of Pan-Africanism because it's not, you know, we've moved from individual proponents to the initiation of Pan-Africanism as a concept through the defining of it and the various expressions by various proponents, even though the consistent thread is unity for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation. All right, so we looked at individual proponents. We looked at some evidence of organizational expressions of Pan-Africanism with the first Pan-African Conference, and then the Pan-African Congresses, of which you saw the first and the fifth Congress's resolutions, and what organizational bodies will start to ask for or demand and come to determine that had to happen for African people in the world. And then we're looking, you know, or now we are looking at expressions on the African continent in the form of liberation struggles and leadership that are sort of the embodiment of our aspirational goals to be unified. Example, Patrice Lumumba, who aspires to unify the Congo without a doubt. And so that now we're looking at how the rest of the world is responding to our efforts to move towards unity that's not an empty-handed unity, but a unity that gives us the power of the nations we exist in, and also poses the threat of our desire to have continental unity, right? Which is the implications in terms of power are endless. Okay, what that means in the world for African people who are the inhabitants of the world's most resource wealthy and rich places What that means for the rest of the world, is that a threat to the rest of the world? Yes. And so we are having to operate in environments that are not in support of our unity, right? And how that manifests. So this is what we're looking at now. So we'll continue to look at different proponents of Pan-Africanism on the continent, including, Amilcar Cabral, and that will get into the specific issues around ethnic identity and diversity. But if you notice on the syllabus this time, I put a special place for the role of women in that, and we will look at Thomas Sankara and others. And also go back to Guinea-Bissau, which distinctively, not the only, but distinctively had women as armed militants in their independence struggle, and what that means, what is the role of women in African liberation, how that manifests, right? And the dimensions of that, because we can't throw off the cloak of colonialism and then still engage in similar or oppressive behavior or attitudes that ultimately express someone else's culture, right? That are rooted in someone else's culture. So the marginalization of women in an environment where women are wholly and fully participating in the liberatory process in these nations, and still to this day, everywhere we are. So we will explore that and others. Of course, I'm going to touch on some other independent struggles, and then go back to organizational bodies, right, that are expressing Pan-Africanism. What happens to the Congresses? What is born out of the Congresses? And specifically in this time, the OAU emerges and then morphs later on into the African Union. And are those bodies living up to their initial vision and mission? So that's where we're going with this. And ultimately, we want to know what is in the hands of African people, because Pan-Africanism is not simply about unity. It's about unity for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation. And we should have something in our hands at the end of all of that, not be empty-handed, okay? So I'm going to end there. I am over, but we started, I guess, a little later in terms of passing the baton. So I think I'm sort of in line with the amount of time that I should have lectured. Okay, so everyone have a wonderful day, stay safe. And I am because we are.
I am because we are. Thank you so much, Dr. Tarine Wright, for a wonderful lecture. We do appreciate you. And also,
Alrighty.
each and everyone who are joining us. I can see there's Hassan Omakoli, Beta Kaluba from the start of the lecture. Thank you, Antonio Domingo. Thank you, my brother. Ambassador Chaplain Clyde Fowler, thank you. And Nicole, we appreciate you. Jerome Palm, each and every Saturday, we appreciate you guys. And Ambassador Zoe, thank you so much. Gideon, thank you. And Francis, we appreciate you. Have a wonderful weekend and stay safe wherever you are. I am because and Ubuntu. Bye-bye.